just like in the movie, wouldn't it be dope if we had the ability to control the Matrix like Neo could? Wouldn't that be amazing? Like literally, like able to control our reality. There is a way for you to do that. Now, let me show you a perfect analogy of what happens when you're able to know the rules of the world that we live in and using it to actually control it. Because today we're going to be speaking about how understanding the Matrix is becoming enlightened. And look, it sounds spiritual, and it is, but there's also a scientific side to it that makes sense. If you give me the time of your day to let me explain to you. For example, you know when you're dreaming, right? You know you're dreaming, and you know that when you're dreaming, you don't know that you're in a dream, right? You're in the dream, you're just going about the dream. And you think you're awake. Only you know that you were dreaming only when you wake up, right? That's when you know that you're dreaming. So it's very similar. There's something that's called lucid dreaming, where when you dream and you realize that you're dreaming, which is to say, you realize the kind of the current state of your reality at that moment in time. You know what's going on. You awaken. Suddenly, you're able to control the dream. Suddenly, you're able to become lucid. Now, I practice lucid dreaming a lot, and I'm gonna tell you a funny story about that. I initially got into lucid dreaming because, you know, you could like, have lucid dream sex, right? And I was younger, and I was like a horny little kid. And I learned about lucid dreaming, and funny enough, when you're in the lucid dream, I did not know that even though you're in a dream and you control your dream, the females could say no to you to have sex. That's the craziest thing in the world. And I was like, first of all, I was like in a dream, I was like, first of all, I was thinking, I got into lucid dream to get laid because I wasn't getting laid on the outside world, and now you're telling me that my fucking dream is rejecting me? You talk about something serious. I remember, like, I was like dreaming, and I imagined the girl, right? And she came into reality, in the dream. That's what happens when you practice it. And I tried to have sex, and she wouldn't. Like, she literally would look at me, shaking her head, and just fucking disappear. That's the craziest thing in the world. Anyways, I'm not going out of the subject. The point is that once you realize you're dreaming, that's when you awaken, and that's when you're able to control your dream. But the funny thing is that prior to that, you didn't know you didn't know you had all of these powers. Prior to this, you didn't know you had the ability to control your dreams. You see what I'm saying? There is something that humans have. There is a power that humans have that they don't realize that they have only once they tap into it. So this is what it's all about. Okay? So anyways, so Neo is very similar to that. When he realized he was in the Matrix and he was able to control the Matrix. But now, in the reality that we live in, it is kind of like the Matrix. I mean, it's not a simulation because scientifically speaking, if the universe were to be a simulation, a computer-generated simulation, how the fuck does pi fit into the simulation? Pi is infinite. There is no amount of space in the universe to hold the equation of pi. You would need an infinite amount of space for that. So that in and of itself, in my opinion, removes the notion that we live in a simulated universe. But it does reflect similar fundamental principles of a simulated universe, which is very similar to a pixel in a screen, like a computer. We do have pixels in the form of atoms. Little atoms are kind of like the pixels. If you look deep down, we're made up of individual pixels. Even deeper than that, we're actually more space than matter. Okay? What, you don't believe me? It's simple. Okay, you know we have an atom, right? We have an atom, right? And an atom has what? Electrons. Atom, electron. The distance between an atom and an electron is very similar to the distance between the Earth and the Sun. Think about that. If you were to put all of the matter that you have, like all of the electrons, bind them up together, theoretically speaking, bind all of your matter together and remove all of the space, you know what you would be? You will be a microscopic organism. That's how small you really are. So in reality, we're more space than anything else. We're more transparent. Isn't that crazy? We're more like a transparency. Like a simulation. That's fucking crazy. Even deeper than that, we live in a constant state of particles going in and out of existence. They're in superposition. You could check out that. You could read upon that in superposition, and also how light, the protons exist in a state of a wave, and a state of a matter. Like they exist as a wave and as a particle. That's fucking crazy. So in reality, we think that the universe that we see is very still, but in reality, this shit is vibrating. Vibrating. And all the different atoms are going in and out of existence. So this universe is not as stable and as permanent as we appear to be. And this is where we're gonna segue into the spiritual side. If you guys enjoy that type of content, if you guys want to work with me one-on-one, and you guys have some situations you guys want me to answer, maybe somebody's playing you, maybe somebody doesn't like you, maybe you want to make somebody like you, maybe you want to tell me your situation and see what I think, you guys can click on the description down below and purchase a one-on-one phone coaching call with me that is completely confidential and nobody knows about it. And there I'll be able to give you my personal opinion about your situation. And at the end of the day, when you work with me, you're gonna get answers. All right, the point is that you're not gonna waste your time. If you guys want to do that, click on the description down below. Those are the one-on-one private confidential phone calls. And the reason why we see solidity is because we're looking at things from the surface level, surfacely, right? Our minds has this tendency to try to find consistency, to not try to look too deep into things because it doesn't want to waste a lot of energy. Our mind will rather have somebody else think for us rather than think for itself because it's trying to preserve itself. But if we really look into things, we'll see that we live in the constant flux of going in and out of existence. Things are not what they appear to be, but we are still led to believe they are. For example, let me show you how. Okay, so let's say that you hate someone, right? So let's say your parents, right? I don't hate my parents, but let's say that you love your parents. They piss you off, right? Suddenly they piss you off. What happens? You begin to see them as the person who pissed you off. You see them, you say they're fucking assholes, right? What happens? You're looking at it through what? The surface level. You're looking at things from the surface level. You think that they're assholes, so as a result, you don't look too deep into it. You just attribute it as who they are. But if you would realize the constant state of reality, which is people are not what they appear to be. They are not their emotions. Rather, everyone, most of us, are a victim of our emotions. Almost everyone, almost every single person is a victim of their emotion. We just cannot control ourselves. The reason why we cannot really understand that is because we're looking at things through the eyes of the ego, which is the part of us that causes us to stay in this constant flux of unconsciousness. Let me read to you this. And this is very similar. Solidity and dependability is a mere illusion. The perception of solid reality is caused as a result of a network of relationships. You know, like solidity, like the atoms. We're not really solid. We're more transparent more than anything else. Okay? From our perspective, microscopic, reality seems permanent. If somebody does something, that means they're an asshole, and that's who they are. If we're in a negative situation, it feels as though we're always going to be in that situation. If we feel pissed off, we act on it because we feel as though we will always be pissed off. It seems permanent. Microscopically, reality doesn't appear as solid anymore. It doesn't appear as solid. Like, it's more transparent. You see? So in reality, reality is all about relativity. Your perception, the perspective that you have. It's not about how can I say? It's not about truth, but more about perception. Kind of like time. Time is relative to the observer. All right. Now let's talk about it from the spiritual perspective. The reason we feel enlightenment is understanding the relative mode of existence and the ultimate mode of reality. Okay, this causes us to mistake fleeting pleasures such as validation as happiness, like validation as happiness. We then begin to find satisfaction in others' pain. Our ego begins to draw itself to what satisfies it. Okay, and repulsed by what doesn't satisfy it. For example, people who are defensive, they're people who live by their ego. They only believe and go to things that reflect their views. If you disagree with them, they're gonna snap because it threatens their sense of self. Okay, until you have become egocentric. Understanding the difference between perceived phenomenon and the nature of reality is what enlightenment is all about. So yeah, you can understand it on an intellectual level, which is scientifically, But to understand it at a spiritual level is more about experiencing it. It's more about removing your mind from the equation. And the only way for you to remove your mind from the equation is to observe the mind. Because if you don't observe the mind, if the mind is what dwarfs, is what bends reality. It makes it appear as though it makes it appear as though it's something that is really not. For example, let's say you're in the woods and you try to pick up a stick, but then you hear a sound. What are you gonna do? Because you thought it was a snake, you're gonna fucking react. But then you realize, holy shit, it's just a stick. Okay. Now what happened here? Your reality was that there was a snake. So what happened? You reacted. In your mind, you saw a snake. So it doesn't matter how real, it doesn't matter what was really happening, your reality felt more real than the actual reality. So as you can see, it's your mind that's really distorting your reality. It's making it appear as though things are impossible to fix. It's making it appear as though people are really assholes. Making it appear as though your life situation will always remain the way it is. Because sometimes we get to draw, we draw ourselves into the fog of emotion where we cannot see anywhere around us. We only see hopelessness. And the only reason you see hopelessness is because you're still living in the current state of reality, which is through the ego. Seeing things as permanent, having that macro perspective rather than having that deep and micro perspective, looking at life underneath the surface. So that's what spirituality is all about, is seeing through the fog of emotion and seeing reality. But the only way you're able to shine that light is through becoming conscious. But the reason we don't do that is because the current state of reality is through fear. We live in a state of fear. The media feeds us fear. We always fear things. We go to school because we fear not making money. We fear disapproval. But the only reason fear arises is because we don't know the true nature of the universe. The uncontrollable emotion of fear, anger, hopelessness is a cry for help. A cry saying, I don't know how my life is going to be. I don't know how I'm going to fix my life. But if you realize that reality is all about perception, that if you simply change how you're perceiving your reality, your actions and the emotions that are required to achieve those desired results will naturally arise. But the only way for you to do that is knowing how to play the game. So by perceiving reality as permanent, you begin to see people for what they represent and hold on to it even though they changed. I apologize for hurting you. Fuck that shit. I'm still holding on to the past. You are permanent. That person who hurt me is who you are. I am not gonna allow myself to become present to the moment, which means forgetting about the past and observing what's going on in front of you. I'm not gonna allow myself to do that. See, and that's why a lot of people harbor a lot of bitterness and vitriol. And a lot of people begin to resist that. You see? So what's going on here? How do you fix this? Like I said, becoming aware of the illusion, which is the mind-made self, the ego. The reason why it's such a struggle is because, okay, you care about your life, right? You care about the outcome. You care if someone hurts your feelings, right? That's fine, right? But who's really getting hurt? Let me tell you this, it's not really you. Oh, you don't believe me, right? Okay, let me show you this. Let's say somebody offends you. Let's say I'm here, I'm like, yo, fuck you, right? Fuck you, okay? Let's say you feel hurt. Let's say you feel offended, right? Who's the I that feels offended? Can you go inside and specifically find that I that's offended? Okay, you might look into the emotion. You might feel the emotion. I feel offended. Okay, but let me ask you this. Tell me about that emotion. How does that feel? I feel a knot in my stomach. I feel an emotion here. I feel warmth here. I feel tightness here. Okay, you're describing to me a physical reaction. Isn't it crazy how when you remove the emotion, I feel angry, to I feel tight, I feel not here, I feel not there. Suddenly the frame changes because you're seeing things for what they are. But wait, who's the one that's saying I feel angry? Okay, so is it your thoughts? Okay, let's observe your thoughts. You're observing your thoughts. But then you suddenly notice, I'm the one who's observing my thoughts. So then I'm not the one who's thinking. Who is my thoughts? Okay, it's your brain. Your brain is making different like neurocircuitries that are making these thoughts. So in reality, you're not your brain, right? I mean, because you gotta control your brain. So who's the one that's controlling it? Who's the one that when you die, your brain is still there, right? Your brain is still there, right? But you're not there no more. When you die, what happens? You leave. You're not conscious no more, but your body stays there. When you die, some people say he's dead, he's gone. But who's gone? You're not gone. I mean, the brain is not gone. The brain is still there. You're just not conscious. The consciousness is gone. The brain, the body, the emotions, the reactions are still there. I mean, look at it. Like, if you look at the brain when someone died, I mean, you look at the circuitry. They still have the circuitry of pain. They still have the circuitry that if you give them a cigarette, they'll want to smoke cigarettes because they have an addiction, right? The only thing that's missing to activate it is the consciousness. So then you realize, holy shit, I'm not my thoughts, I'm not my emotion, then what the fuck is I? You can't, if you really look, you cannot find it. You can't find it. But then and then you say to yourself, what the fuck? Like, I can't find this I, but this I feels so real. It feels so real. So who am I, on whose behalf am I thinking? Who is this person that keeps saying I? It's no one. It's all an illusion. It feels real, but it's all an illusion. So once you realize this, think about it. It's one thing hearing somebody say gossip about somebody else, right? You don't get offended, right? You don't get offended. And it feels like just words. There's no meaning. But then, when they talk about you, you feel offended. But who's you now? No one. By disidentifying yourself with the person who you call you, suddenly nothing could hurt you. The only person that was getting hurt was the illusion self, the illusion mind-made self that comes because you have identified with form, with your mind. Then once you are able to step out of your mind and see things for what they are, by observing your thoughts and observing the emotion, you're going to begin seeing reality for what it is. Meaning that it's not that the reality is better, but that you're removing the fog of emotions from reality so that you can see a clear picture of reality. It's very similar to when you give dating advice to somebody else. When somebody broke up with somebody, you're able to give them advice. But when you're broken up, you can't give advice and you can't take advice. Why? Because you're in a situation. So the reason why we take advice from somebody else that doesn't experience the pain is because they're able to give us a clear picture. Is that they're able to see reality for what it is, and so that's why they make smarter choices. So you, who's broken up with, you cannot make those decisions, and you cannot make the smart decision because your emotions are fogging reality. So you're gonna make a lot of irrational decisions. So becoming enlightened is removing yourself from the person you call you, who has a bias on life, who only says this makes me happy, and if I don't have this, I'm not going to be unhappy, I'm not going to be happy, and step out of it and begin seeing the clear picture of life without having any emotions. Suddenly, there's no such thing as good or bad. I mean, think about it. There's no such thing as good or bad. A star exploding in any universe is no big deal. But a star exploding in our universe, in our galaxy, is bad. Why? Because the I is in it. The I. But if you really look at it without having any bias and observing it for what it is what it is. It is what it is. It's not evil, it just is. So the part of you that says I have a bad day is what? It's the ego, the thoughts, the mind-made self. The part of you that says my life sucks is not you, it's the ego. So by observing your mind, you step out of that matrix. Step out and observe it for what it is. And suddenly it doesn't have any control over you. Awakening, to become awakened, is simple. Just see things for what they are. See what's going on inside of you. Just see. Become the silent witness. Just see. Attach no meaning to the situations that happens in your life. If you feel like somebody offends you, okay, somebody offends you, but if you really just look at the action, he just did something. Who offended who though? That's all in the mind. That's all in the mind. So now when somebody offends you, just observe your mind being offended. Observe the emotion, observe the thoughts that arise out of the emotion, and just remain present. Notice all of your senses. Notice how everything's going on inside of you and feel what's going on. What I like to do is write down what am I feeling. Not saying I feel bad, but saying the physical physical symptoms of what's going on. When you just notice the physical symptoms, you remove the I rather than noticing the emotions. I feel bad, I feel depressed, I feel betrayed. Those are all labels that the mind creates to amplify what's already pain. The amplification that's created about your mind, in reality, that's the pain. Not the emotion, but the amplification of the emotion. The matrix is what amplifies the negativity. You see what I'm saying? So, what you're going to notice is that if in reality, the only thing that makes us different from everybody else is our minds, right? It's our minds. We think we're different, so we see ourselves as different. And that separation is what causes us to see reality as a threatening thing. Why? Because we don't feel one with all things. If you really notice, we are all one. Think about it. The only difference between me and you is our brain. Right? I mean, think about it. You could have been born like me. You could have been born like me. And you would have had the same experience of being a human like me. I mean, I have no doubt in my mind that being a human, maybe the emotions are different, but the experience of becoming conscious, aware, is the same. If I would have been raised in Osama bin Laden's kind of environment, I possibly would have been like him. If you would have been raised in Kim Jong-il's environment, you possibly could have came out like him. What I'm saying is that we're not different. We're blank slates. It's kind of like a whole bunch of little of these. For example, it's kind of like trees. Some trees are reality. When you see a forest, there are some forests that in reality are one tree. You just have you just have a big trunk that creates different trees. But in reality, they're all the same trees. That's who you are. We feel different because of our mind. Our mind makes us feel different because it needs to survive by creating comparisons and differences in order to enhance itself. But once you look through the illusion, you start to see that everyone's the same. That everyone in reality is the same person. The only difference is our minds, our perception of who we are, which is distorted because of our perception, because of our ego. So realizing that everyone is the same, that there's no such thing as difference between me and you, no such thing as difference between me and Leonardo DiCaprio. If I would have been in Leonardo DiCaprio's brain when he was getting up in life, when he was becoming big, and I would have done exactly what he did, I would have had the same results he's had right now. The same results. The only difference is not who he is, it's just what he did. But the mind, because it's insecure, says that he's different because he's better. That's not true. If he can do it, I can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. The only difference is your perception. And the only way to get to that is seeing reality, which is this. We are all blank slates. There is no difference between the most successful person and the most unsuccessful person. The only difference is the mentality. And if you allow your mind to make you believe that there is a difference, you're never going to succeed in life. And you're never going to step out of that matrix. It's one of the craziest things that I've realized that helped me become a better person. This thing is that this is what, remember that scene in The Matrix when the little creepy motherfucking boys told Neo that the only way for you to bend the spoon is realizing that there is no spoon. So once you realize that there is no spoon, that's when you're able to change it. So once you realize that there's no difference between me and the person, that is all an illusion, that it's all governed by your mind and that your action is governed by how you perceive things, your only responsibility is not to force the outcome, is to change your mentality and begin seeing yourself as someone who has achieved the goal that you want to do through psycho-cybernetics techniques that you can learn through in the book Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. Apply that and your reality is going to change. The way I like to do things is like this. I use the self-image as a tool. People use the self-image as an identity. I use it as a tool. The one who I am the presence, the awareness, the empty slate. right? The emptiness. I use my self-image to give me motivation to achieve goals. So for example, if I want to become a better YouTuber, all I have to do is see myself as a YouTuber, see myself succeeding as a YouTuber. But the issue is that a lot of people use that and use it as an identity, which is when they fail, what happens? Their identity was tied up to that. They had high intention and high attachment. What I want you to do is have high intention but low attachment, which is this. My intention is to become one of the best YouTubers, right? But because I'm using that only as a tool, like seeing myself as a YouTuber, I only use it as a tool because I know by seeing myself as a YouTuber, it gives me the motivation. If I want to change path, all I have to do is just remove that mask and change to something that I want. I want to be a better basketball player. Okay, let me see myself as a basketball player. But I don't hold on to it. I use it as a tool rather than the identity. Who I am is not what I see. Is the perceiver, the awareness, the presence. That cannot change. And so that would mean that it doesn't matter what I do in my life. It doesn't matter how many times I fail. I will never, ever feel attached to the identity of who I project. Because I only use my self-image as my identity, as a tool. For example, basketball players, when they retire, they feel shitty. Because they identify themselves as a basketball player. So when they retire, they don't know who they are. That's because they saw themselves as a basketball player, and that was great because it motivated them. But they didn't realize who they really were. They didn't go deeper and realize that they were the presence. So what I want you to do is just use the self-image as a tool. What you want to be, you want to get in shape. See yourself being in shape. See yourself being admired by guys because of how in shape you are, and use that as motivation. Don't use that as an identity, which is to say, I'm seeing myself as being in shape. I'm seeing myself guys liking me because I need that shit to happen. Rather, you saying to yourself, I know if I imagine this, my brain is gonna react. And my brain is going to want to make this happen. So you're more using it as a tool to control your brain, rather than as a tool to find yourself. Make sense? And so that's how you step out of the matrix. It really is. Because if you're attached to the outcome, that means you're living in fear. You're afraid to fail. And you're once again back to that mode of reality. Anyways, I hope that made sense. If you guys need any more information, check out The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle and Psycho Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. This is the last time I'm making this video. This took a long time to create. This was something I had for many months that I haven't been able to talk about. So I'm going to be going back to my normal mode of making videos of how to make guys chase. But this video is about empowering you and helping you see through the veil of illusion that everyone is under. Alright? I think I'm sweating. Anyways, this is Alex. I may be posting up a video at 12 a.m. tonight. Once again, if you want to see that video at 12 a.m. tonight, hit the notification bar. And the little notification bar that you see, hit that, tap that, right? Hit that, right? And so that you can get straight notification when the video's coming out. Anyways, take care. Goodbye.